Hi, this is Rick Brandenburg for Turf Bugs and Rock and Roll. And it seems like the older I get and the more experiences I have and the more things I see, the more I forget. And I've always been a proponent of good record keeping, because that's really the only way we can remember what happened in an individual year and how we can use that information to be useful and help make us better at being a turfgrass manager. And one of the things that I've always worked in a lot is trying to predict or forecast what's going to happen. That's always based on what's happened in the past. Just like the weather forecast, they take all the events that happened in the past, run them through a computer algorithm, and it basically says, because when this happens, this is usually what happens a few days down the road. And that's a lot about how weather forecasting works. So really, when we think about what just happened and what's going to happen, it's really good to reflect back on what we just experienced. And this is the end of a summer. It's been a summer that in the U.S. has, in some cases, been very, very strange, going all the way back to the winter. So are there lessons to be learned? So this is my zoysia grass lawn in my front yard, and I really like it, really enjoy the characteristics and qualities of it. And if I think about what happened in 2018, we had a month of February that was record warm. In February, this lawn came out of dormancy during our winter, and by late February it was 50% green. Well, that's not what it would normally be. And by mid-April, I think it was perhaps 40% greened up. So we had a really warm month at the end of the winter. It caused things to advance at a rate that really shouldn't have happened. Then we had a really cold March, which knocked things back a ways. And then we got into June, and June was an incredibly hot month. Everyday temperatures in the mid to upper 90s, almost no rain, only about an inch of rain on this site. So just as it was starting to look good in May, then we got into real hot and dry period that put a lot of stress on it. Then we got into July. July was slightly below normal temperature, so it was warm to hot, and we had 6 inches of rain. So the turf grass really recovered. So let's think about this. If the turf went through these extreme levels of lushness and then stress and greening up and not greening up and all that took place, think about what's happened with the various stresses that apply to it. The pests, for example. If the turf had that range of stresses and responses and challenges, the same thing applies to the various pests, the insects, the weeds, the diseases, and how they were able to respond to these extreme environmental conditions. So there's two ways of looking at that. One is what really happened with the pest issues, where there's certain periods of time where it really encouraged them and certain periods of time where perhaps it didn't. And yes, we saw that our forecasts for a lot of the pest issues this year were way off track because of the weather extremes. But the other side of that is that we often look at the tolerance and the ability of the turf to withstand stress. And right now, this zoysia could withstand a lot of stress because we've had really nice warm temperatures and plenty of rainfall. But think about when it's challenged, even if the pest populations are not really high, think about the fact that the turf is so stressed and it doesn't tolerate or can't take as many stresses as it would under good growing conditions. So there's a lot that goes on, a lot of things that perhaps pest pressure that normally wouldn't cause a problem might under periods of stress. It might be under periods of optimal growth that the pest populations that might normally cause a problem simply don't. So it's really good to monitor these things, keep track of what's happening out there, and really be able to understand how to take advantage of optimal conditions and use that to maybe perhaps change or modify your pest management program. Hope that helps. Probably was confusing. Look forward to talking with you again soon.